Somewhere between the ages of 25 and 40, something quiet happens to certain people. They don't announce it. They don't explain it. One day, the group chat gets shorter replies. The invitations get politely declined, then eventually stop coming at all. The circle gets smaller, and everyone around them assumes they already know why. They're wrong, and the real reason is stranger than anyone expects.
The common explanation is always the easy one. She got arrogant. He thinks he's better than us now. He changed for the worse. But that story falls apart the moment you look closer, because the people this actually happens to are rarely the loudest in the room. They're the ones who used to listen the hardest, remember the most, and show up the fastest every single time. Which raises an uncomfortable question worth sitting with.
What if withdrawal isn't a personality flaw at all? What if it's a symptom of something else entirely? Something that starts small and grows so slowly that the person experiencing it doesn't even notice until they're already standing on the other side of it. To understand that shift, you first have to understand what happens to a mind that starts paying far too much attention to everything around it.
It begins with something almost invisible. A smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. A compliment that lands a half second too late to feel sincere. A laugh that's slightly too loud for the joke that supposedly caused it. Most people never register these tiny signals consciously. They pass right through them. But some people start to notice. And once that noticing begins, it cannot be turned off again.
This is the curse nobody ever really warns you about. Intelligent, self-aware people don't leave social circles because they think they're above them. They leave because they stop simply experiencing conversations and start reading them instead, almost against their own will. Every exchange quietly becomes data, and the data doesn't always say what everyone in the room was hoping or assuming it would say about them. They begin noticing the fair weather nature of certain friendships, the ones that only appear when things are going well and vanish the moment they aren't. They notice the quiet competitiveness hidden inside a congratulations. They notice who asks questions because they genuinely care, and who asks questions simply because it's their turn to talk. And once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it again. So they stop confusing attention with connection. Because attention is easy. Attention is simply being in the room, being seen, being included. Connection is something else entirely, something rarer, something that doesn't announce itself loudly or need an audience to feel real. And that single distinction, once it's finally made, quietly changes everything that follows. But noticing the pattern is only step one, because noticing costs something real, something invisible to everyone else. Nobody talks about the mental tax of awareness, the sheer exhausting weight of analyzing every conversation for its true meaning instead of its comfortable surface one. Small talk stops being small. Every gathering slowly becomes a kind of translation work, decoding intention behind words and real energy behind polite, practiced smiles. This is why so many self-aware people leave a party early, not because they secretly dislike people, but because performing shallow interaction while quietly processing all its hidden subtext is genuinely tiring in a way most people never have to think about. It is entirely possible to be surrounded by a full room of people and still feel completely, utterly alone inside it, unnoticed. And so, slowly, without any ceremony at all, the question that used to matter most starts to quietly change. It used to be, how many people know me? Now it slowly becomes, who actually understands me? That single shift in the question a person asks themselves in private is the quiet hinge that so much of this entire story swings on. But there's a much deeper layer still waiting underneath even that. Carl Jung wrote about something called the shadow, the buried parts of ourselves we refuse to look at directly, so we project them outward onto others instead, without ever realizing it. And here is the part almost nobody says out loud. Much of the judgment, the jealousy, the sudden unexplained coldness that self-aware people encounter from others isn't actually about them at all. It never really was. It's a mirror, plain and simple. When someone reacts strongly, disproportionately to another person simply living differently, choosing peace over drama, choosing silence over having the last word, that reaction is often less about the choice itself and far more about what it quietly stirs up inside the person reacting. Their own unresolved insecurities, suddenly held up to a light they never asked to see. Once you truly understand that, something shifts internally, permanently. You stop needing to win every single argument. You stop needing to be included in every group, every plan, every conversation. You choose peace over being right, because you finally understand that being right in someone else's eyes was never really the point to begin with. But here is exactly where this story could go wrong. Because there is a trap quietly hiding inside all of this. One worth naming clearly. It is dangerously easy to dress up avoidance as wisdom, to call it clarity when really it's just fear of getting hurt again, wearing a calmer costume. Not everyone who pulls away is enlightened. Some are simply protecting an old wound and calling it peace instead. The real transformation requires being honest enough to tell the difference. The real version of this shift isn't loud, and it isn't defensive. It doesn't need to announce that everyone else is fake while they alone see clearly. It's quiet. It's specific. It shows up as someone who still shows up fully for the 2 or 3 people who actually matter, who still laughs freely, who still lets people in, but simply stops performing for rooms that were never really watching anyway. That is the actual difference between disappearing into loneliness and falling in love with clarity. Loneliness is empty. Clarity is full, just quiet. Silence, to this kind of person, stops being a void to nervously escape from, and slowly starts becoming a tool instead. A place to think clearly. A place to decide who they actually want to become, without an audience quietly shaping the answer for them. And slowly, without any dramatic before and after moment, a life starts to reassemble itself around fewer, truer things. Not a life built for applause or approval. A life that actually fits the way a well-worn coat fits. Not a rejection of people, but a redirection. Walking toward what's real instead of walking away from what's fake. That is the stable state this entire process was quietly building toward. So here, finally, is the only question that actually matters, and only you can answer it honestly. If your circle has been getting quieter lately, is it because you're isolating out of quiet fear, or because you're finally seeing everything clearly for the first time in years? Sit with that honestly before you decide anything. And if this found you at exactly the right moment, you already know what to do next. If you liked this video, subscribe this channel, like